Hi, my name is Liz with the Lily Pad. I'm here with John Small of Sunny Radio, and we're going to do a quick interview. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, John.
Hi, I'm John Small from Sunny Radio. My wife and I started the station 7 years ago in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, I like I was telling you earlier, I've never heard one of your broadcasts, but I'm looking forward to tuning in sometime soon. So
There you go.
yeah, I'll just read a little bit about you, and then we'll get
Nice.
going on the questions, okay?
Cool.
So John Small grew up in Huron, South Dakota with 2 brothers and 3 sisters. So the house was a little bit like the Brady Bunch. In high school, John was a bit of a class clown and found an outlet for his humor on the radio. He started working at KIJV when he was 17 years old. This job provided a good fit for him, and John and his wife, Heidi, as he just said, are now the owner of 2 radio stations, and they host a syndicated radio show that's on over 80 stations, including KIJV in Huron, where John started his radio career over 20 years ago. John and his wife Heidi have 2 children. Their son Troy is 20 and is also hosting a radio show, and their daughter Taylor, who is 16 and will be a junior in high school this year. Sounds like the radio is kind of a family business for you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, my daughter will probably be doing a radio show someday. Right now, she's still a little too young.
You don't want her quite out in the public eye yet?
Well, she would probably enjoy that. Funny thing is, she said she wants to do radio sales, which, I mean, how many kids say they want to do sales? But
oh, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely different.
She's got a pretty good background in sales. During one of the school fundraisers where they go out and collect money, she raised over $1,200
Wow.
and the total school income that was brought in from that was $4,800. So she brought in 1/4 of the funds.
Wow. Sounds like she'll have a successful career at it.
I think so. So I think I'll let her do radio sales when she's ready. So
might help out old dad. You never know, right?
Absolutely.
All right, John. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
You know, we'll be empty nesters at that time because our daughter has 2 more years in high school, and our son is already 20, so he's already old enough to be out on his own. So my wife and I have talked about eventually finding a home on a lake and kind of winding things down a little bit. I don't know that we certainly wouldn't be retired by then. We would be adding more radio stations, but the nice thing is instead of owning them now with the syndication, we like just providing the content and letting somebody else own them. We don't need to own all those stations.
No, that kind of sounds nice. Radio live from the lake. I can see that being a fun lifestyle.
Absolutely.
So, next up, we have, what is the one thing that you find to be true that most people would disagree with you on?
It's funny. I don't believe in luck. And I have people all the time say, oh, you're so lucky, or that's so lucky. And I believe in being blessed. I believe I believe in miracles. I've seen miracles happen in my lifetime, but I just don't believe in luck. It's funny. I used to work at a radio station in Pella, Iowa, and there was a gentleman that started working there shortly after I did. And when I took the job, I was offered a position to build a whole new client list. And then my first day, another salesperson quit, and they said, "Hey, if you want his list, you can have his list, and we'll hire somebody else for that new business position." And I said, "Well, I'm kind of excited about growing my own client list." So they hired this other gentleman to take over a list that was already there. And at Christmas time, my sales were beyond his sales. And he was saying, "Oh, you're just so lucky." And I'm like, it has nothing to do with luck. It has to do with 15 hours a day, making calls and going out and working my butt off. It's just amazing to me how lucky someone is when they do all the right things. And, when they don't do all the right things and they expect something to just fall in their lap, it typically doesn't happen.
Yeah, I would have to say I agree with you. The one statement that comes to my mind, when you're sharing that is success is when preparation and hard work meet.
Yeah.
So that I would say that pretty much sums up what you're saying there. You have to apply yourself. There's no such thing as accidental success.
No, because if you're not trying to grow your business, somebody else most likely won't just come and do it for you. So,
absolutely.
You need to do the hard work.
Absolutely. So what habits have you formed that have helped make you successful?
Well, I don't know that I would really say I'm successful, but the things that I think would be good habits would be reading, reading a lot. The habits that I have, I guess when I'm looking at my page to see what I said when I told you, I said determination and naturally inquisitive. So I guess one of the habits would be determination. That kind of goes back to what we talked about before, being determined, not just sitting around and expecting it to happen, but, to be professionally persistent. And there's a difference. You can be professionally persistent. You can call somebody 200 times if you have to be professionally persistent. And there's a way to do that without, hopefully, being a nuisance. If you're calling 200 times, that might be crossing the line, depending on what that time frame is. If that's in 2 days, that might not be professional anymore. But be persistent. Don't give up so easily. So many people never succeed because they don't make enough calls. They give up way before they should. And when success was on call number 6, they gave up on call number 3. And you're just never going to make it there. And then the other thing I said was being naturally inquisitive. For me, I was the kid that during the field trips, I was the one asking questions. What does this thing do? And what does that thing do? And I think they have labels for those kids today and they put them on medication. But when I was a kid, I was just a pain in the butt, Yep. But I was just naturally inquisitive and I always asked questions. And doing what I do for a living, whether it's doing an interview with a guest or whether it's, sitting down with a client and helping them with their business marketing needs, to have questions and ask the questions that other people don't ask, that is to me, it's a great habit to have. So being naturally inquisitive and wanting to know what makes things tick.
Yeah, that's really neat. I can definitely identify with those things. I was certainly the one in science class and all those that, everyone was like, can't she just shut up? So no, I totally understand that. But I think that, people like that, people like you, people like me, and other people in the world that are like that, we gain a unique set of not just skills, but a unique set of knowledge. So
absolutely,
I think that kind of can make us an asset sometimes to the people in our lives. So
I agree.
We might be annoying, but we're good at it. So
be professionally persistent. Yes.
Professionally persistent. I like that. I might be using that in the future. So what has been your biggest mistake?
I have made so many mistakes in my life. I don't know that I could really tell you the biggest, but I had a cease and desist letter come one time, so that was probably a mistake. But I have a lot of ideas, and I'm not afraid to do them. There's some people who have a lot of ideas, but they'll never do anything with it. So I have a lot of ideas, and I like to act on them. And there are times I'll get the cart in front of the horse, and I did that with one of the ideas. I still think it's a very clever idea. When we started the radio station, we noticed that we had some commercials that weren't sold. And I thought, what can we do to draw attention to that in a fun way? So we made up a fake client, Everest Business Insurance is what we called it. So I'm going to make sure I'm saying there is an Everest Insurance. We found out later, so we shouldn't have used that name. But we ran these ads talking about business insurance. So wouldn't it be great if you could buy insurance to ensure that you had enough business? And then when people would go to the website, and I won't even say what it was because it's gone now, but when they would go to that website, there was a video that talked about this business insurance. And then like 3 seconds into it, the video kind of stopped and it said, wouldn't it be great if there was something like this? Well, there is. It's called good advertising. And that's what just got you to this website. So the whole concept was just a fun little concept, but I didn't know there was actually a company called Everest Insurance. So Everest Insurance, if you're watching, sorry about that. That was not intentional. But their legal department sent me a nice little cease and desist letter. So we stopped that campaign right away. And then, I think another thing big mistakes that I've made is, trusting somebody that everybody told me not to trust. And I thought, I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I gave this person the benefit of the doubt, and it kind of came back to bite me in the butt. But I still want to just believe in people because at the end of the day, nobody's perfect. And I understand we're all going to have flaws. And I'm going to try to find a way to work with you no matter what.
Yeah, I can also identify with trusting people maybe you shouldn't have, and I've definitely had that bite me in the butt a few times as well. So
absolutely,
it's amazing how as you go from being a child to an adult and you learn lessons. It's kind of the same way in business. It's kind of like you grow up into your big girl business pants, kind of sort of. But absolutely. Yeah, it's quite the journey. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
What impact has social media had on your personal life?
I remember being kind of a Facebook holdout. I was on MySpace. I didn't really know what I was doing on MySpace, but I was on there, didn't really get it. And my wife got on Facebook and she was connecting with friends. And You know, she'd be sitting on her side of the bed, looking at her phone, laughing. And I'm like, what's going on over there? And she's like, just get on Facebook. And finally I was like, fine, I guess I'll get on Facebook. So I got on there, and I'm really glad I did, because Facebook really is cool. And now she picks on me because I have more friends on Facebook than she does. But and if somebody tries to become my friend, unless there's somebody that I know for sure that I don't know, because there's somewhere it's like some woman on a beach in a bikini, and I'm like, I don't even know who this is. We have no friends in common. She's not in the community I live in. She's not in any of the communities that were on the radio. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be her friend. But if it's somebody in one of the communities that we broadcast in, or even if it's, somebody that maybe I went to school with, but I didn't know them real well, I usually friend them. And it's been really cool for me personally on Facebook, because again, it's one more outlet for my goofy sense of humor. And if you ever go to my Facebook page, you'll notice I try to keep things very positive. Last year during the election, that did not happen. Oh my goodness. My page, because I have friends who are conservatives and I have friends who are liberals, and then I have friends who just don't even like politics. And my page somehow became like the squatting place for people to have arguments, which I didn't like. And I almost came off Facebook because of it. I was like, this is terrible. So if you go on my page, it's typically not arguing. I just try to have things that are lighthearted and fun. But the thing that's been interesting when you're talking about a benefit of that is I really feel like I've gotten to know people a whole lot better, and people have gotten a chance to know me a whole lot better than I ever would have without Facebook. I was on the radio for almost, 15 years, I suppose, before Facebook ever came along. But it was always a one-way conversation. I talk into this thing and they listen through a radio, and they can shout at their radio all they want, but it doesn't come back out this end. So on Facebook, if I say something stupid, or if I say something that unintentionally upsets somebody, you hear about it right away. Facebook is really cool about that. You have this feedback where you can find out what people think. And I love that. It gives every person a voice. So every person out there watching this, if you're on social media, you have one of these too. Facebook is your platform, and I think it's an awesome thing if you use it properly.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you there. It's been great for me to connect with family that, I maybe haven't seen in 10 years, and for whatever reason and different things like that. So I think it is neat. And sometimes those more heated debates can be interesting, whether you decide to take part in that or not. That can kind of be fun or interesting to read. So it's definitely a big entertainment piece for sure. So.
Absolutely.
So my last question for you is, how has social media impacted your business?
The thing that's really neat, kind of going back to what I talked about, it's this two-way street now. So when people are listening on the radio, if there's something that they want to chime in, they'll reach out that way. And quite often, I think almost every day, my wife and I will have at least one thing that we talk about where we'll say, hey, for more on this, go to facebook.com/John and Heidi Show. And then people can go there and they can have their input. We do a fun feature every Thursday called Dear John Letters. And this started about, 5 or 6 years ago. And we only did it for about a year back then, maybe 2 years. And then we kind of let it just run its course and it went away. But it was one of these things that people would still bring up years later. And we decided, let's resurrect that and bring it back. So we brought it back within the last year, I think. But it's just a thing where you can send a letter and then we'll answer it. And the fun thing about that is my wife and I are almost polar opposites on so many things. Trying to think of one of the letters. There's one where a guy said, and I don't know, a guy or a lady, I guess I have no clue, but a person said, I come to work early all the time and I park in this, almost the same spot all the time. And some guy keeps pulling in so close to my car that I have to go through the passenger side to get in my door.
Oh my gosh.
It's not assigned parking. You can park wherever you want, but it seems like if I move around, this guy follows me around. So my response back was, if you get there early, park somewhere where your driver's side door is right up against a curb, or it's, against a tree or something where now you'll know. Because if he's parking in the grass to do it, now it's intentional. But I said, a lot of the time people don't even think, they're pulling in, talking on their phone. They're not trying to be rude. He may just be pulling in and not paying attention.
Yep.
He or she maybe. So my advice was, I thought pretty good advice. Then my wife says, let the air out of their tires.
Oh my.
two completely different perspectives there. So.
Oh, that's funny. Yes, for sure.
But the thing that's neat is with that feature, then people can go on and they can post their own question. And then we post the question every week as well. So other people can go in and give advice. And there are times where I think that the advice from our other listeners is far better than our advice. We've got one lady, I think she's like a psychologist or whatever, but she's got some phenomenal answers for things on there all the time. And I'm like, wow, this is like free therapy. But, that's one more thing that social media, I don't know how we would do that without social media.
Yep.
And I don't know how we would do that feature in, we could certainly have it where people could mail things in, but to have the ability to see it and answer it yourself, I just don't think that would work without social media.
Yeah, again, very much agree with what you're saying. It's fun to be able to interact with not only people in your community, but as of the last 6 months, I've been listening to someone's radio show that's broadcast all over, and she has guests from all over, and then I'll get on and follow them, and people from California to Virginia to just anywhere, and you're like a daily part of their lives, and you've never met in person or sat down for a cup of coffee with them, but you know about their kids, about their grandkids, it is a very unique platform. So
it is. And for business, the other thing that's nice is like when I go out and do a live broadcast now, instead of just talking into one of these over the radio, I pull out my smartphone and we do a little video, 1 or 2 videos from there as well. And it's amazing the response that you get from that. And I don't do Facebook Live. I record a video and then I repost it just because I want a second chance.
Yeah.
Look like an idiot, or I get done, I look and go, oh, why didn't you tell me I look like a moron? I guess I always do, but see, I don't even know where to look on here. I'm like, I think it's up there. So hopefully.
Nope, you're looking right at me. You're
the whole time talking like this. But I just, again, it's a really cool feature to have social media, and it's free. And I mean, if you have a business and you're not using social media, you really need to rethink that.
Yep.
I talk to people all the time that don't. It's typically it's an older generation. They're saying, I just don't know how to use that. That whole FaceTube thing, I don't get it. And I'm like, get somebody that gets it.
Yep.
Bring them on board, and they'll pay for themselves. If they do a good job, they'll definitely pay for themselves.
Yep. And that's, that's what my business provides is social media help for people, because, even if it's not the older generation that really either doesn't care, doesn't understand how to use it, sometimes there might be a 30 or 40 something business owner that doesn't have the time.
Yeah.
Unless you invest the proper amount of time and resources into it, it can actually work to the opposite effect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's something that business owners definitely need to make themselves very aware of nowadays.
And I've had that issue before where I'll find a business, I'll see, we moved to a different area, so I'll drive by and see a business that's been there probably forever, but it's brand new to me. And then I'll go on Facebook to see, oh, hey, I found them. And then the last comment or the last post was from 2013.
Yep.
Then you're thinking, is the place even still open?
Yep.
Why would they have not posted anything since 2013? And so I think that it can almost do more harm than good if you have a Facebook page or a Twitter account or Snapchat or MySpace. Is that even still out there? Whatever it is, if you're not using it, I don't know. But if you're not using it, if you're not posting things on there, you're missing the boat. It just makes so much sense, because that is your free platform. That's your little megaphone to, speak to the world for free.
For sure. Yeah, I did a blog post a couple of months ago called The Changing Face of Business. And it was just talking about that. I used an example of like a mattress, salesman, sales store, where maybe, the mattress store has been in business for 30 years and they don't think that they need to put themselves on Facebook because business is doing good. But, if me as a 30-something, if I go on and if I decide I want a mattress, the very first place I'm going to go is Facebook. So if you're not on Facebook, you're not even in my decision set. You're not there at all. And then next is what you were talking about. Okay, so when's the last time that they posted? Are they staying current with their followers? Are they posting content that matters? Or are they just on there to say, hey, I'm on Facebook, look, so no, I think all those things are really great things to be aware of. And it's, it's great to hear that other people are aware of it. So, that's kind of what some of the things I look forward to being able to really make an impact in the next couple of years.
Well, it's so important. And before we had Sunny Radio, I had a production company where we would write and record radio ads, and we do television ads. We work with clients all over the country. We were in 49 states. We were missing Rhode Island of all places. But I remember I had a bunch of roofers that I worked with because we went to their national trade show and got to speak about how to make advertising work. So had quite a few people in that industry. But I remember a day I got 2 calls from 2 different roofers in the exact same situation. They were both in a situation where, hey, we're trying to grow our company and we're trying to grow this business. And the one company was in Indiana and the other company was in Illinois. They weren't far from each other. The one company in Indiana said, right now we can't really afford to do anything. We're going to just kind of sit back and going to wait and see what happens. And the other company said, I'm going to need to make the investment. Boy, this better work because I don't have the money. If it doesn't work, I can't afford it. And I've always said, advertising costs money, but effective advertising makes money. If it's effective, it's paying for itself. If it's not effective, you shouldn't be doing it anyway. So he said, I'm going to dive in and do some stuff. And 6 months later, when I was working with this same roofer and he was buying another truck and adding another crew, I looked back at my notes from that very first call because I was trying to find something that we had talked about. And I saw this other roofer's name and phone number on there. And I thought, man, I wonder what that roofer's up to today. So I called to see how are things going. And this is 6 months later, this the tale of 2 roofers. And the one roofer growing, adding people. The other guy, well, we had to lay people off. And now my son had to get a job outside of the company. And it's amazing. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be some big, massive thing. With social media, utilize that. If you can't afford to do anything else, time and money are interchangeable. You'll spend more of one to save some of the other. And I didn't come up with that. This guy way smarter than me came up with that. But it's true. You'll save time by doing it yourself, or you'll get to a point where you say, man, this has worked really well. Now I'm so busy, I don't have time. Hey, I need to have you do this for me because that's what you do. But it's just one of those things. Make sure you utilize all of the tools that are available to you, especially the ones that are free. I mean, use those.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's been great talking to you. And like I said, it's so awesome to have somebody else that's in marketing, just another avenue, kind of reflecting back all the things that I've been telling clients and stuff. So
it's fun to chat. I still feel weird because I don't know where to look on this thing.
No, you're doing good. You're doing great.
So the whole time we doing this talking. Hello?
No, you're good. I promise. We'll make sure to get a goofy shot of you at a later date. We'll do a whole blooper reel of you. No,
that sounds good.
No, it's like I said, it's been really great to talk to you, John. And maybe in a couple months down the road, we'll have to do it again. So
there you go. Well, thank you again for chatting with me. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was a lot of fun here too. Thank you, John. Bye.
Bye-bye.